Dark Star today, Jeff Duncan.
The Dark Star?
Yeah, alongside.
You mean the Death Star?
Oh yeah, Death Star. I'm driving the Death Star.
Sheesh.
Sorry, I'm not good on my.
No, clearly.
On my Star Wars references.
No.
That's Clyde Berdan. He's in the co-pilot seat today, along with Dave DeCorbier.
Dave's laughing his butt off right now because I can see him because he didn't hear it. I'm like,
Dark Star.
Dark Star. And I'm like, you mean the Death Star?
Isn't there something called the Dark Star?
Yeah. But
I don't think that's what I was.
Yeah, that's definitely not what you were trying to get, though.
That's not what I was getting to, but I could fake it that way. Dave DeCorbier, the host of the upcoming D League with D squared. What time slot is that? Double D. That's awesome, man. Great lineup coming up on Sports 1280, and we will be listening religiously to the D League. This might be the best name of a sports show next to Duncan Holder in the world. Yeah. Oh yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh. Wow. Yeah, actually, I could go into get off my lawn rant on the city of New Orleans. I'm starting to think that all these rants that I've gone on the city, on the roads, the lack of civil services, and some of the parking tickets that I've accrued over the years is all coming back to haunt me. I'm a conspiracy theorist. Now you know that I am in fact a New Orleanian because I'm starting to believe in conspiracy theories. Because I came out last night on my way to the gym, been working at home in my home office, and there's a boot on my car parked legally in front of my house on a nice little residential street, little quaint little area. Nothing to stand out about my car, but it's booted. I didn't even know I had a ticket. I apparently have some kind of traffic camera violation I didn't even know about. I never got any documentation on it. One ticket, that's it. Booted. I thought city council passed some kind of legislature, some kind of law recently that they're not going to do that. That they were going to do multiple tickets before they booted. Somehow that word has not gotten out, or that rule has not been passed because I was booted for one ticket. And I was not happy about it, as you can imagine, guys. I was pretty livid. So I'm just going to try to refrain.
I'm just going to take off my headset right now.
I'm going to try to refrain from going off because the more I go off, the more I get booted and get somehow the traffic camera lights end up recording me doing whatever. Most of my traffic camera violations have all been at the same intersection. It's Canal and Carrollton.
Yeah, that's the worst one.
Everybody knows that one. I have friends that have multiple ones there, and they almost always are for rolling through a right on red late at night when there's no one around. So I'm not doing anything. I'm just rolling through. There's no other traffic. There's no other car lights. You can see it late at night. There's no other cars at the intersection. So I'm barely rolling through going right on red, and I get a ticket. Now this is the problem with these traffic camera lights. There's no common sense involved. A cop, a regular traffic enforcement officer would never give you a ticket in that instance because they know there's no one around. You're not endangering anybody. There's no one crossing the crosswalk. You're just rolling through because it's late night. You're trying to get home, right? You see no other cars. You don't come to a complete stop. It's common sense. But that's what these traffic camera lights don't. There's no logic to them. They just buzz you, and next thing you know, you got a $150 ticket, and then you end up getting booted because of something that you don't want to go take the time and hassle to fight it downtown. That's what's wrong with these scams. And that's why most other cities in the country have done away with them, except for us here, where we are bankrupt, and so we are taxing the citizens even more so. The able citizens, I might add. It's just an extra tax. And I would be actually okay if they would just put a toll booth up in the middle of Carrollton and Canal. It would be more transparent. I'll just pay my toll to the city.
That is a terrible idea. That's an awful idea.
It's more transparent than this scam of a traffic camera light.
And it's also going to snarl traffic to even worse, more crippling, slow levels.
That's fine. Just send me a bill in the mail. Let me send another $100 in, because that's what I'm doing right now, and I'm not the only one. So that's one thing the new mayor-elect LaToya Cantrell has talked about doing away with them. She'll get my vote if she does get it.
She's already in office. She doesn't
I'm
need
saying
to vote
the next
anymore.
time. The next time, Clyde, when she runs for office again, she will get my vote because that thing is a total scam.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, our mayor she hasn't had too much of a good go lately. I mean, especially if you go by some of the reports that she's getting involved in the King Zulu 2019 fiasco, and that stuff's not working. And oh man, it's just gotta get her some dubs, man. Gotta get her some wins. City of Yes, though, hey, it's not bad.
Yeah, she's got a ways to go, but look, she's new in the office, and
I just want to let you know this has gotten so bad. Your rant yesterday about potholes. Shout out to Hunter. Hunter Scalos, at Hunter Scalos on Twitter. Took a screenshot of this. It's definitely a meme for sure, where it says it has from a Yahoo Finance article about Domino's unveiling a project where they fill potholes with and then they spray paint Domino's logos on them, and then it's a meme on the bottom of SpongeBob SquarePants, but without taxation, who will build the roads? So it's
I love it.
So it's pretty hilarious. So in our last week here, we're getting some of the good memes for sure.
I love it. So I got to get this straight. Domino's Pizza is filling potholes.
Yes.
How did that happen? That seems such a random occurrence.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things, but yeah.
They're filling it with
asphalt, yes, they're not.
pepperonis,
They're not. They're not.
mozzarella.
Yeah, they're not filling it with dough, Jeff.
I'm just
they're not filling
asking.
it with
It
pizza
seems
dough
like
and pepperonis and
a
bacon
reasonable question.
and onions. All right.
It seems reasonable to me.
Or should I say chicken and bread twists and lava cakes and all that kind of stuff? No. That's a good point. That's true. That is true.
I would say that if they did fill it with dough and pepperoni and mozzarella, it would be better than the consistency of whatever the city of New Orleans fills the potholes with. Because I don't even know what that is, but it tends to last about 6
Tears of
months.
broken dreams.
It lasts
And
about
broken
6
axles.
months. It's made, as Larry said yesterday, the consistency of kitty litter, I think.
Well, here's a good thing and we'll talk about this later, but at least the good part about this is that Domino's is still doing something that's infinitely better than changing your name for just a handful of weeks to talk about your burgers, because no one wants your burgers at a breakfast restaurant at IHOP. Get out of here with that.
You had to go there on International House of Burgers.
International, yeah. International House of something, all right. I told Dave it was the International House of a word that, or should I say 2 words that go together, but it can't go on air because it's an expletive. So.
Is that the worst corporate decision we've seen in the last decade?
When we get into this later in the show, I think history will say that this is probably by far the worst.
All right. Well, we will get into that later because we have to go on multiple rants on the International House of Burgers, not pancakes. But let's talk a little sports. That's what this show is all about. Next 2 hours, we will be diving into a variety of subjects, including the Saints mini camp, which opens today. I'll be jetting out there after practice, and we will hear from Larry Holder at 10:30. He's out at Saints minicamp practice, which I'm sure today it's turned out to be a pretty nice day, and I bet they have a decent crowd out to watch. It's going to be open to the public, so if you want to get out there, play a little hooky from work, today would be a good day to do it. See the 2018 New Orleans Saints, and we'll talk to Larry at 10:30, and then at the top of the second hour, 11:05 exactly, we will talk to our very own Will Guillory. What's up, Will? And he will be discussing, among other things, the upcoming NBA draft, which is next week. Yes, and will be telling us what's up with the NBA draft. He'll also be telling us what's up with LeBron James. Where's he going to go? We're going to talk about that because that's going to dominate the NBA offseason. And there was actually a little discussion on the mothership, I do have that ship right, the mothership ESPN, about him potentially fitting in with the New Orleans Pelicans.
Oh, you mean we're not going to talk about how on yesterday's High Noon with Bomani Jones and why am I blanking right now?
Pablo Torre.
Pablo Torre talking about how the Pelicans just absolutely had to look at selling Anthony Davis to the highest bidder because some reason that whatever. Even though people like the Anthony Davis truthers and who get so offended so quickly by these things. It's the funniest thing on social media because it's like, y'all need to relax. Like, literally, this is what they're... I mean, of all the shows that are on ESPN in the morning, I actually like theirs. There's actually pretty good. I've watched it the last 3 days. It started last week. But I watched it the last few days. And it's actually pretty good. But, I mean, these are conversations they're having. I mean, they weren't... actively
that's what
doing
they
this.
do.
But I mean, that's what it's supposed to be. But
Yeah,
we shouldn't
it's
freak out about it every time.
all you
Not,
worked up about it.
not me. I'm not
worked up.
I'm not worked up about it. I'm worked up about people. I'm worked up about people who get worked up about it every time it comes up.
That's the whole point of the show. That's what they do it for.
Just
That's
saying.
the whole point.
I'm gonna bring that up with Will to see what he says.
Yeah, I'm just telling you. They do these stupid things, and everybody starts talking about it. It's been a formula that's worked for ESPN all the way back since Cold Pizza, when Woody Page was on there with Skip Bayless.
Pizza,
I mean,
man.
how long's that franchise? It's 20 years old. That franchise of debating.
Well, it's gone through some iterations, but yes.
No, it's the same thing. It's just
but
a
this show is
different
supposed
human
to be different though, because I mean, it's not supposed to be in the same vein of Undisputed and First Things First and then First Take and now Get Up. It's supposed to be completely different from that because it's supposed to be more conversational and less fire prone to starting things. Like you can have conversations and you don't feel like it's a forced diatribe. That's the one thing that's annoying about watching First Take, is that regardless of whether or not a person like a Stephen A. Smith is dead wrong about something, he is so emboldened in his own crap that even when he's wrong, he still is going to say he's right, which is completely 100% annoying. And that's why I don't like. I can watch shows sometimes, but there are some times where I'm just kind of like, I cannot do this, because it's one thing to be able to say my job is to debate and I'm always right, but guess what? If we were all right all the time, we'd all be wrong all the time too.
But that's the whole point of the show. That's what they do. They do that to stir the pot. It's worked for, like I said, for decades now. And if they weren't trying to be like that, they wouldn't have a stupid headline asking if Anthony Davis the Pelicans should try and get something for Anthony Davis, because that's exactly what that does. It starts to stir the pot. All right, 504-260-1280 is the number to call if you want to participate in the program. We're pretty wide open today. We're going to talk Saints, Pelicans. We'll talk a little College World Series. It's now set, right, Clyde? Are we all set?
We're all set.
8 teams, 3 SEC participants,
yeah,
I believe.
Yes.
2 ACC participants I know of. So once again, the
and
South.
2 Pac-12s.
Yeah, the South and West kind of dominating college baseball. That's the way it's worked for as long as they've been competing at a high level of college baseball. So we'll talk about College World Series. We'll also talk a little LSU football. ESPN, I hate to keep referring to the mothership of ESPN because Lord knows they have plenty of publicity on their own. But they came out with their early college football power rankings. And it's good news and bad news for the LSU Tigers. 1, they're ranked higher than I thought they would be. 2, they play a lot of teams ranked higher than them. That's the bad news. So we'll talk about that when we come back. But let's take our first break. And when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the Saints' upcoming minicamp and what I'm going to be looking for when I get out to Airline Drive. You're listening to Dunc and Holder, Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Stay with us.
I haven't heard this song in forever. I haven't heard the Dollars in forever, man. Good Lord.
I lost track of all time because of the traffic camera shit. Yeah, so LSU's ranked 18th. I didn't even think they'd be in the top 20. I don't know why.
No, they're always going to be ranked. They're going to be ranked because of their defense. But it doesn't mean they deserve to be ranked.
You know what's funny is they might actually be like about that. I'll talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Oh.
Well, guess who?
This is actually Lenny Kravitz.
Oh, this is the remake of?
Yes, this is for
sorry.
the Austin Powers soundtrack.
Sorry, I went with the original. Guess
Honestly,
who?
this does not get enough credit for being as good of a cover as people actually do give it credit for. Because I mean, because there are a lot of people who were very nonplussed, and Lenny Kravitz actually got with the Guess Who and said, "Look, you know, they're thinking about wanting to do this for the Austin Powers soundtrack. I love this song. I want to do it fair, but what do you think I should do?" So he actually went to the Guess Who to say, "Hey, look, you know, I don't want to completely remake your song, but I want to do this song." And they were like, "Hey, look, add your spin to it. You know, we've heard your music. We like your music. You know, add a little flair to it. But like whatever you could like, you know, and then like work with them and like put it out." It's literally that is one of the better covers that people actually give it credit for.
What's the best cover song of all time?
Well,
That's a
then,
good
well,
question.
we can't even do that because I mean we'd be here all day. And
What do you mean we'd be here all day?
because we'd be here all day. Because I mean there's a lot of different there's a lot
We
of
heard
different
a
things
lot of
to
them
cover.
Saturday night.
We did hear a lot of them Saturday night. Light Rock Express, thank you for that.
I'm telling you right now, the best cover song I've ever heard is Gin and Juice by the Gourds. Lord. The cover of Snoop Dogg's Gin and Juice country bluegrass version is outstanding.
All right, Jeff.
It doesn't get any better than that.
Okay, Jeff.
And Snoop Dogg loves it.
Snoop Dogg
Same
loves
way.
it.
He's actually
Snoop Dogg loves it.
He does. He's actually gone on stage with them and performed it multiple times. Absolutely loves it. So if you haven't heard that, put it on your Spotify or wherever, download it.
Yeah, don't do that.
Trust me,
Don't.
it's awesome.
You're not missing anything, guys.
All right, switching gears, thankfully, to sports. Back to sports. We're going to talk New Orleans Saints in this segment before we get into Sir Lawrence, Larry Holder, who's out at Saints camp for the first day of minicamp practice today. Practice starts at 11 o'clock and goes to about 1:30. Then they'll have open locker room. It's almost like an in-season time. And Mark Ingram, Saints running back, reportedly is going to be at the minicamp today. I'm sure that'll be a big storyline. And that works beautifully for me, guys, because there's nothing I like better than everyone else mobbing around a storyline that I could care less about. To me, it means nothing. I expect Mark Ingram to sign eventually. I'm saying sign. Report eventually full scale to the Saints in the fall. I think his representation is just trying to get a little point across. They don't want him to get hurt. It's much ado about nothing in my mind. He's there, unlike Julio Jones in Atlanta, unlike Earl Thomas in Seattle.
Khalil Mack is not expected to be at Raiders minicamp.
Right. So those guys,
Earl Thomas.
those guys are taking a bite out of their paydays to avoid going to minicamp, and they're trying to make a statement as well. Their representation, their agents telling them to stay away. There's something to be said for that. I mean, if you get hurt, you're going into a contract here, you're kind of out of luck. It's happened to many players before in their careers. So I understand it. I think a guy like Mark Ingram, he doesn't need to be at any of these camps. None of the veteran players need to be at these camps. I guess Drew Brees maybe to be there to work with some of the young receivers, the new receivers. You have to have an offensive line, obviously. But for the most part, this is all about the young players trying to learn the offensive and defensive systems, getting an introduction to the scheme, learning as they go, making mistakes, getting corrected. They basically, I've used this term before, it's a fire hose of information. They are overwhelmed, their heads are swimming, and they're trying to process it all so they can play fast and not think. And that takes time. And this is probably about the second or third time they've gone through the playbook in this mini camp, and then they'll go do it again in the fall a couple times before they actually get into live action. That's what this part of the year is all about. And the guy that I'm going to be watching today when I get out there, and this is no surprise to anybody, is Taysom Hill, the backup quarterback, the young second-year player from Brigham Young, who I'm writing about this week, a little tease, a little, I guess, advance on who the Saints quarterback of the future might be. And it sounds like it's going to be Taysom Hill. We've heard that before, but I had a chance to sit down with Sean Payton last week and talk to him about Taysom Hill, and I can tell you he's enamored. He's enamored with the guy that has yet to throw a pass in an official NFL game. But he likes everything about the guy. It's not just that he's fast. He's got, I think, the second or third fastest 40 time by a quarterback that's been recorded by a draft prospect. The leader was, I'm trying to think of his name. He played for Texas A&M a few years ago. Reggie McNeil, I think. Reggie McNeil ran the fastest 40 time ever by a quarterback. Second was RG3. Third was Taysom Hill. Now, Taysom Hill did not record that 40 at the Combine, so there's a little bit of an asterisk by that because the Combine always has the same recording device. So it's, it's apples to apples comparison. His 40 time was recorded, I think, at his pro day, which can be, let's face it, LSU's infamous for having a fast track.
They do have, the indoor track is very, it's quite quick.
It's hard to compare, but let's face it, he's fast. He's a very good athlete. I think his mother was a sprinter, a college sprinter, so he gets his speed from, I guess, his mom's genes. But he comes from a family of athletes. All of his brothers played college football. His sister played, I think, college sports. So Taysom Hill comes from one of those families, and he was the youngest. So you know how that works, Clyde. Your older brothers are beating up on you. They're competing with you in basketball and everything, and they're just beating you down, and eventually you get very competitive that way. And that appears to be the case with Taysom Hill. And Taysom Hill, I'm telling you, is going to be the heir apparent to Drew Brees unless he just falls flat on his face in the preseason. And it wouldn't surprise me, along with what Larry Holder thinks, it wouldn't surprise me if he beats out Tom Savage for the backup job and they save a roster spot. If they think enough of Taysom Hill, they might just go with two quarterbacks and put J.T. Barrett on the practice squad because they're high on him as well, the rookie out of Ohio State, undrafted free agent. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Jimmy in Gretna. What's going on, Jimmy, on this Tuesday afternoon?
Nice.
All right, thanks, Jimmy. Great points along the Taysom Hill lines, and that's a good question about LSU. I don't know if that's attributable to the arrival of Joe Burrow or if it's just coincidence. This is kind of the time of year where guys start committing. Some of the staffs kind of put pressure on the kids. Hey, look, we've got 4 or 5 DBs that could pop. If you want to get one of these schollies, you might want to pull the trigger. This kind of goes on this time of year, but I think it's a little of both, don't you?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. I mean, Joe Burrow helps just because, at the end of the day, I would imagine that having a player of his caliber, he's going to move the needle. The talk about him moves the needle. And then, of course, LSU is still in the hunt for Derek Stingley, who yesterday was named the #1 player in the country by Rivals. First time that a quarterback has ever been named the number one top overall recruit in the country by Rivals ever. And he's got it down between LSU, Florida, and Texas, and he makes his decision I think in the next week or so. So there's a lot of big things happening for LSU, which is why and we'll get into this when we talk about LSU football later on this in the show. But the thing about LSU specifically going forward is that you hope, if you're an LSU fan, that the acquiring of depth players last year and the amount of work those guys got in as young rookies is only going to help with games that you are completely 100% expected to win and stealing games that you're not expected to win, so that by the time the season's over, you're talking about the team that you have coming back for next year, for 2019, is going to be stacked, loaded, and ready to go, ready to compete. I think that's the case, and that's why I think people need to give Ed Orgeron at least this year to weather this year and then get on past it, because I think this team is going to be stacked for 2019. And then, of course, on the Saints front, where you're talking about this I think the quarterback situation for the Saints is going to be the most talked about and most watched aspect of the preseason going into the preseason games.
Yeah, I agree with you. They got a nice quarterback room this year. I'm going to write a little bit about that as well, because I think it's the best they've had in some time. I like Tom Savage, so yeah. I think they've got a good depth there. All right, another break, and when we come back, we'll have Sir Lawrence, Larry Holder, on the line from Saints Camp. We'll get his thoughts from out on Airline Drive. You're listening to Dunc and Holder, Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Stay with us. You see that text from Carol?
Yeah.
That's huge.
That's awesome. That's
I was sitting
awesome.
in that meeting yesterday going, so wait, we're going to be audio engineers now? I realize it's, I don't know. There's a lot goes into this thing.
That's a huge thing for us, yeah. Because now we're going to have Luke's, we'll have all that stuff set up. And then, it's really just going to be being able to lock into getting locked into Spreaker. And once we have that.
Well, if he comes there, and then we can learn from him while we're there, and then we can get him to come down to the studio.
Well, see, that's the thing. That's the thing now. Is that if we need to be able to figure out how to do that.
They need to get him down there to set it up.
Yeah.
Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Stay with us. Your forecast on Sports 1280. Thank you, Beth. New Orleans.
From the Fox 8 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Bruce Katz. Today for Tuesday, get ready for more showers and storms. Some of those could be strong, possibly severe.
Oh, that's awesome.
Dangerous lightning during the afternoon. Rain coverage at 50%.
Yeah.
Ah! Corey, man. God, Corey. Good Lord.
From the Fox 8 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist.
Well, this is one cover that I do know is not the original. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not John Denver. So I do know that. My limited music knowledge comes through for me.
Yes.
All right, let's go out to Airline Drive out in Metairie. Sunny, hot, humid Metairie. Talk to Larry Holder, who's out waiting patiently for us to finally get in touch with him since I went over rambling on about Taysom Hill. Larry, what's going on, bud? This is where Clyde steps in and tells you to hydrate.
Yes, I was going to say, I hope you're wearing loose and light clothing and
Sunscreen.
making sure you got some sunscreen on, making sure you're hydrated, got some water in you, Gatorade, Powerade, whatever your preference is, just to make sure, hey, man, don't want any heat-related illness, man, just checking on you. Well, we can't wait for the report from Saints camp saying, hey, can you come get your boy? He passed out on the side of the on the sidelines. I just saw they dump a huge thing of ice on you from an ice bucket.
Yeah, Duncan Holder, regular caller Jimmy and Gretna, said he's on his way out right now to watch minicamp. I'm sure he's not alone. It looks like Mark Ingram, from all accounts, is going to be there this week. I'm assuming that's going to be the dominant storyline today, don't you think, Larry? Yeah, this kind of falls in line. Talking to Larry Holder out at Saints minicamp today. This falls in line, Larry, with my thinking. I think your thinking. I mean, this time of year, I really don't think these veteran players need to be there. Obviously, Mike McCarthy feels the same way. He's got 16 veterans that he's excused from minicamp this week, including Aaron Rodgers, and he calls them the vet select, guys that don't have to go through minicamp. He says it's all about getting the young players more reps, and I agree 100% with him. I think more and more we're going to start to see this happen around the league where veteran players are not going to have to go to these off-season training sessions that is just a waste of their time unless they want to go. And I think more and more teams are going to let some of these guys not show up because I think it's mainly about young players right now trying to learn the installation, learn the offense and defense. What's Drew Brees got to accomplish other than maybe establishing a little bit of a relationship with Cam Meredith and Traquan Smith at this point? Yep. Camp Casualty. Yeah, and we know that's not the way he's wired, but it would certainly not hurt the Saints if Tom Savage, Taysom Hill, and JT Barrett got every rep at quarterback just to develop somebody behind him. Because, as I say every year, knock on wood, Drew Brees has missed one game because of injury in 12 seasons. It's one of the most remarkable stretches in Saints history, and you just can't take that for granted if they have to go to a backup, which they haven't had to do, and they're one of the few teams in the league that hasn't had to go to their backup for a long period of time during the Breeze era. But I agree with you. I think the offensive line, most of those guys are vets. They've been through enough reps. They probably don't need a whole lot of time out there at this time of year as well. And those are big dudes, you know. They don't need to be out in that sun sweating away. But so what are you going to have your eye on today other than the Mark Ingram show up?
Larry, I mean, unlike OTAs where you had 3 weeks basically of being able to see the team, you know, 1 week, the next week, and then kind of having their own storylines kind of develop every time you saw them differently over the course of a few weeks. Now you really only get like a few days, and the storylines, at least from this, almost feel like really it's going to be one of the last looks we're going to be able to see of this team before training camp starts in late July. So I guess my question is, we saw the offense have two good open dates that media were able to see, and the defense seemed to have the last one. Is it really kind of more just of getting everybody acclimated and just going one-on-one to kind of see, like Sean Payton and the rest of the coaching staff, to see what they have now with everybody, or at least mostly everybody, available and involved, so they know how to plan going into training camp in July?
Yeah, I think I remember Taron Armstead getting hurt at some point as well in an off season, and not even in a contact drill. So things happen. All right, Larry, I'll see you out there in a couple hours. Looking forward to it. Hydrate, sunscreen, loose fitting clothing. That's the 3-item checklist. That's how it works, right? All right. Sir Lawrence, Larry Holder, thanks, buddy. Larry Holder out at Metairie, Saints Camp, opening mini camp practice. If you want to play hooky, get out there today. It should be a good day. We might have some rain the next few days, so today might be your best chance. All right, Duncan Holder's taking a break. When we come back, we'll continue to talk about the legend of Taysom Hill. I got some stories for you from my conversation with Sean Payton. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Stay with us. I can't watch this Southern Cal women's thing enough. We got to talk about that next hour. I absolutely love it. It's like maybe one of the greatest things I've ever seen. I bet she's been asked to do 1 million interviews.
Oh, yeah. She's been in a lot of places now.
What was her name? Ellis or something like that?
Kayla Ellis?
Something else? Yeah. Did you hear about, who was it, it was somebody, some SEC team, I think it was. They had a chance to win the men's side.
Mm-hmm.
It might have been Arkansas. Georgia ended up winning it. But I think it was Arkansas or South Carolina, somebody.
Yeah.
Well, it might have been Houston. I think it was Houston. And they were in the
it was Houston.
steeplechase guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like hit the
he
last
freaking got cleared out by that hurdle. Good Lord.
Yeah, they would if he'd have finished whatever where he was at, they would have won the team title. That guy's got to feel terrible. Cool idea. All right. Welcome back. Jeff Duncan, Clyde Verdun, and Dave DeCorbier. Duncan Holder sans the Holder part of the title, who Larry Holder is out at Saints Camp in Metairie, where I will be after the show today. Get my first look at the 2018 New Orleans Saints. And I wanted to talk a little more about Taysom Hill, because we can't talk enough about this guy. He's the buzz of the offseason. And I've been doing some research. I got a column coming up on Taysom Hill. And what I would say to you is, I think this guy's got more of a chance than people think, and it has more to do with his off-the-field intangibles than I think it does his on-the-field tangibles. His running ability, his passing ability, they're kind of a given. What I like about the guy is his track record, his history of competition. If you go back and study Taysom Hill, he's from Pocatello, Idaho. Not the greatest source of NFL talent. Not a lot of great players come out of Idaho. I think Jake Plummer was an Idaho product, but he led his high school team. He played for a power in Pocatello, Highlands. I think it's Highland High School. They've won multiple state titles. He led them to a state championship. I think their first championship in about 8 years. Yes, it's high school. A lot of players do that at the NFL level. But there's a sign early on. He comes in, leads his high school team to a championship. Then he signs with Stanford. Signed with Jim Harbaugh at Stanford in a big-time recruiting class at Stanford, and ended up going on his mission because he's a member of the Latter-day Saints, Church of Latter-day Saints. Served his mission before he went to college, which is kind of unusual. So he spent 2 years going to Sydney, Australia. In that time,
beautiful.
Yeah, picked a good spot.
Beautiful.
Right? Or got awarded a good spot, I guess. In that time, Jim Harbaugh took a job with the San Francisco 49ers, so things changed, and he elected to not go to Stanford when he got done with his mission. He elected to go to Brigham Young. When he goes into Brigham Young, they already had 6 quarterbacks on the roster, all of them on scholarship. Incredible competition. It doesn't scare him away. What does he do? He goes in as a true freshman, wins the starting job. I think he started in game 3 after the incumbent who had gotten the job because he was a veteran. He ends up beating him out. I think he ran for a 68-yard touchdown in his first start as a true freshman, led his team to a 49-0 win over Hawaii, and then continued to dominate, set records at Brigham Young. So there's another notch in his belt, right? High school, on to college. He had numerous injuries because he runs a lot. That's one concern I have with him at the NFL level. A lot like RG3, some of the other quarterbacks that are mobile. You can't really run a lot in the NFL. You're going to get banged up. That's a concern. But moves on to the Packers. Doesn't get drafted because of these injuries. Got injured his senior year. Kind of gets overlooked in the draft. Goes to the Packers, goes in there, and immediately makes a huge impact in the preseason. Mike McCarthy was gushing over him with the Packers. I don't know what they were thinking in Green Bay. I'm wondering if Ted Thompson made this call because Mike McCarthy did not want to lose Taysom Hill. They ended up cutting him. I think they thought they could slip him through the waiver wire and get him back on their practice squad. And kudos to the Saints for identifying this player in film study. And there's a story there that I will tell in my column about how they found him in film study and brought him in and signed him, and he's done nothing but impress since he's gotten here. So I guess what I'm saying, Clyde, is it's one thing if he did one of these things. He's done it everywhere he's been. He's achieved, he's overcome odds, and he's risen above the competition. I like seeing that kind of track record in a player. Those are the kind of guys usually that end up achieving.
Well, I mean, it certainly worked for. It definitely certainly worked for the current quarterback under center right now.
Yes, very similar.
Very similar. And when I was in Atlanta last week, I was actually in an Uber with a guy, big Falcons fan. Tomo's from New Orleans. Obviously, Tomo's a Saints fan. Been a Saints fan all my life. And really, it was to talk about. He was saying, one of the most interesting things that Falcons fans or some Falcons fans have about Drew Brees is that, man, if Nick Saban wouldn't have ruined it for everyone, Nick Saban wouldn't be in Alabama and Drew Brees wouldn't be in New Orleans. But I was like, hey, man, for the last 12 or so years, New Orleans Saints fans have had nothing to complain about. And hopefully, if Taysom Hill's that guy, maybe another dozen years, we won't have anything to complain about either.
Hey, sometimes you have to get lucky. Saints were overdue in getting a quarterback.
Said that too.
Went decades without one. All right, hour one in the books, hour two right around the corner. We'll talk to Will Guillory at the top of the hour. Duncan Holder, Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Stay with us. Got to hit the men's room as usual.
As usual.
You know why?
Tiny
I have
bladder.
a bladder the size of a walnut.
Tiny bladders.
And I drink way too much coffee.
Yeah, clearly.
I mean, I hate to say it, but I think I'm going to have to start doing something instead of running. I think just all that pounding over time.
It does build up.
Oh, my God. It's always the same freaking calf, too. All right, NBA draft. LeBron.
Oh, LeBron James.
LeBron James. LeBron James, bitch. Yeah, that's huge getting Luke to come out. I don't understand what she meant by NOLA. I mean, what the NOLA Brewery paid for it. She's saying they're just taking it out of maybe what they paid us.
I would imagine.
Nick Nurse is the new Raptors coach. I don't know what's going on in Toronto. That just seems like they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, right.
Swimming in circles. Are you going to camp? You're not going, are you?
No, I'm going to go back to the office and
Back to the morgue?
yeah, back to the crematorium.
Back
and,
to the library?
Yeah, no, it's not a library because at least libraries have shelves of things that are interesting. And at least would have one hot
I
librarian.
mean, I feel like if I talk too loud, everybody's going to like shush me.
Yeah,
It's weird.
Don't trust me, but because trust me, like Kevin Litton. There are days when I just want to walk over and be like, "Hey, dude, not everything is freaking, not everything is Murphy Brown. You can relax for some stuff. You don't have to yell and be whiny all the time, all right?"
What is he
Like,
doing?
he just gets, he gets so loud and he gets so frustrated when, he's talking about things dealing with, Cantrell's office or, whatever.
But he's not shushing you or anything.
No.
Okay,
No.
that's
No one
fine.
shushes anybody, but trust me, there's also the sect of people who, also have no qualms about being super loud and super aggressive, and yet there are 2 open phone booths that you can walk into
Right.
that are there for that reason.
Who's the new social media person next to you? I don't know who that is.
Her name is
She just started or something?
her name is Victoria.
I mean, is she new?
No, yeah, she's only gonna be here for the summer.
Yeah, so she's a fellow.
Yeah,
or
she's a
whatever.
fellow. Yeah, she's only here for the summer.
Yeah, I mean, there's like all these new people I go in, I don't know who they are.
Yeah.
Is this the chick version of Ocean's 11?
Yes. Yes.
Can I say that? Can I say that word, chick?
Yeah, you can say.
I-
I mean, you can kind of say that.
I use that word all the time, and it's
That is.
people tell me it's antiquated.
It is antiquated.
Really?
You can't. I
Chick?
mean, you can say chick, but you can only say to people who are when chicks aren't around.
It's not a. Where did that become a bad term? I'm so old. I don't even know when things aren't cool anymore. I didn't know the word midget was a bad word.
Except for one angry midget.
Good point. I mean, Frank DeFord titled his book "The World's Tallest Midget."
Yeah, right.
It was the title of a book of one of the greatest sports writers of all time. Right, but I'm just intolerant. Open. I didn't even know there was one.
Or specifically, he just didn't like Leslie Jones's character.
I think I do remember that actually. The more
It's
I
like, you
think
people
about
are terrible. Hmm.
Duncan Holder, back for hour 2. We're still on the air. The FCC did not ban us.
Oh, but we're so close.
We're almost to the end of our session here at Sports 1280, and we did not get banned. But you're right. Can't count the chickens before they hatch. I can say chicken, can't I?
Yeah, you can say
that
chicken.
word?
You can
Okay.
say chicken, but don't abbreviate that.
I just wanted to make sure. Jeff Duncan, Clad Verdan, Dave DeCorbier manning the ship without Larry Holder today, who's on assignment. He's been on assignment a lot. Larry's been on assignment more than I have, which means he's working harder than I am.
which is because he's actually been here to work. When you're on assignment, you're in London or France,
That's kind of true. I can't.
or
really say
you're
that.
you're at the Kentucky Derby.
That's true. Been on a lot of extended trips. I don't need to travel for a while. I can tell you that. Those were all great trips, but I'm tripped out. I need to hang here in New Orleans. Yeah, that's true. But don't get me started again.
Yeah, let's not do that again, please.
Yeah, let's go to Will Guillory before I get derailed into another rant that sends all of our listeners away. Will Guillory, who's probably never been booted in his life, probably never got a parking ticket because he's a fine, upstanding citizen.
That's because #0clout.
Will Guillory, welcome to the program. Have you ever had a parking ticket or a traffic camera ticket in your life, Will? Yeah, you're not alone. You probably had a few. What's parking like at UNO? Plenty of parking. I always got a million parking tickets when I was in college at the University of Louisville. Yeah, yeah. You still got your diploma, right? They didn't like hold it back because you had too many parking tickets or anything. All right, hey, the NBA draft's next week. I know we talked to you about this before, but I'm getting excited about this draft, man. It's a deep draft at the top. It looks like there's a lot of elite talent, and one of the things that stands out to me, Will, about this draft is there's a lot of big guys coming into the league, and not necessarily old school big guys, more of the modern day kind of Anthony Davis type guys. A lot of them built similarly to AD. I'm intrigued to see how many of them land in the West, and just exactly how the top of the draft goes. Because I still think, while it sounds like DeAndre Ayton out of Arizona, it might be the number one guy. I still think there's some intrigue here. Is there could be some trades, and we could see some movement in the top 5 or 6.
Well, that's the thing, that's been, I guess, the biggest conversational piece, because when you look at who's drafting where, especially in that top 8, and then obviously not counting the Cavs, who Lord knows they're going to have a much bigger fish to fry in this draft. The conversation is really about and how do you as a team go and find that sequential talent that helps put you in a position to eventually overcome having to draft in the lottery, such as, is there that type of transcendent type player in this draft? And if there isn't, well then, how do you go about using that pick or using those high picks specifically to maybe work some trades, work some deals? And right now, it looks like, outside of, like you said, Mo Bamba and guys like that who can shoot threes, there really is still maybe a tiny, tiny bit of a question mark on how the Suns and teams like that are going to go about trying to use this draft to make themselves so much better after being so bad last year.
Talking to Will Guillory, NBA and Pelicans reporter for NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. And Will, this draft does have a little bit of a Louisiana flavor to it. We've talked about Melvin Frazier, the Tulane swingman, and where he might go in the draft. We also mentioned before Jacob Evans, Baton Rouge native out of the University of Cincinnati, who's in a very similar kind of draft slot as Melvin Frazier. But the guy I'm intrigued by is Mitchell Robinson, the big kid out of Chalmette. Never actually played in college, committed originally to Western Kentucky University, and kind of had a interesting kind of serpentine path to the NBA draft. But he is an intriguing talent. He's 7 feet tall, very athletic. What do you hear, or what do you think is going to happen with Mitch Robinson? Do you think he'll end up going in the first round? Somebody will take a shot at him?
All right. Well, now switching to this final series that's still going on. Oh wait, no, the final series is not still going on. Yeah, we couldn't even get to Game 5. It's just so depressing because there's been nothing to watch on TV the last like 2, 3, 4 days. So it's just so sad. But obviously, man, with the way that the finals ended, with all the talk basically after Game 4 with LeBron's injured hand and what happened after Game 1. And now, basically, everybody is just latching on to what happens next. Specifically, there are so many names that I feel are so interconnected. When you talk about one, I almost feel like you can't help but talk about another one. So if you talk about LeBron James, it almost seems like people talk about Paul George. If you talk about Kawhi Leonard, then somehow people talk about, Chris Paul. And just the nature of the beast when it comes to free agency, which will start on July 1st with the moratorium period and people being able to, secure deals and all that kind of stuff. I can't wait. I just want your thoughts on it. I can't wait for it. This part of the summer is usually fun. You're going to have this in the World Cup going on, but I cannot wait to see the news that's going to come out starting on July 1 about who's talking to who's going all out for LeBron's signature, Kawhi's signature, who's staying put, because it really is a way of keeping the NBA in the spotlight in the doldrums of summer before football starts. Yeah.
All right, so let's just end the speculation or start the speculation right here. Could the Pelicans be in the mix for LeBron James? Could it work? Is it possible? Would it have to be a sign and trade to make it work? How could it work?
Well, last thing from us, this is something that Jeff and I talked about really at the start of the show in the first hour. The freak out anytime someone in the national media brings up anything about Anthony Davis playing somewhere else other than New Orleans. For me, it's exhausting because the freak out about the freak out is just wasted energy because that's what national media is supposed to do. I mean, sometimes they have these arguments, and if you, specifically the high noon segment talking about Anthony Davis and going to the highest bidder or whatnot, which for me, I read that as, and I watched the segment, it was more complimentary of the fact that New Orleans has literally, arguably, the top player, the number one player in the NBA today that anybody would build their squad around. This is going to continue. It's not that big of a deal. We all know better. Can you just tell everybody out there, basically, whenever you see these articles, whenever you see these things, at least see the whole thing first, but relax.
That's Will Guillory, NOLA.com, Times-Picayune, NBA Pelicans beat writer. Hey, Will, the unsolicited advice I'll give you regarding that, mirror your career along with AD, and then as soon as it looks like he might leave, try and get transferred to another beat, because you're not going to want to cover that.
So pretty much the Brian Windhorst.
Yes.
Or David Midman. Okay. Greek League.
You just don't have to oversee AD leaving New Orleans. Oh my gosh. You know how many stories you're going to have to write on that? It'd be like... All right, that's Will Guillory. Will, thanks for joining us, and hopefully we'll get to talk sometime in the future. As always, we always appreciate you jumping on board, buddy. All right, that's Will Guillory, NOLA.com, Times-Picayune, ace Pelicans writer. He's on top of it. He had a great breakdown of the NBA draft. I'm looking forward to this draft. It's going to be a fun one, and I really believe there's going to be some impact players. I agree with Will. Maybe not top 5 type, top 10 type guys, but I think there's some future all-stars in this draft.
By the way, a severely underrated event to go to, the NBA draft. I've been to one. It's pretty fun.
That's cool. I'd like to do that sometime. Be a bucket list thing for me. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back. we'll talk a little bit more about LeBron because I want to get into where he might land other than New Orleans, since we were getting a little dreamy thinking about LeBron coming to New Orleans. Duncan Holder, Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Stay with us. Every team I look at on here, like thinking of him joining, it's like really intriguing.
Right.
Like seeing him with like the Sixers. That would be cool. What about the Spurs?
The Spurs the Spurs is the craziest one, and
like
that's why, knowing how their relationship is, it's so nutty, dude. It's so crazy.
I mean, they'd have to have more than LeBron to challenge.
Yeah, and that's where Kawhi comes in, and that's where a player like Kawhi comes in, and then that's where. But I mean, if you look at their team though, outside of like an aging Tony Parker, an aging Manu Ginobili, you've got Patty Mills, you've got Michael Finley, I think, is on that team too.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, you got Aldridge, Kawhi,
yeah, I was saying LaMarcus Aldridge.
LeBron.
Can you imagine having 3 dudes that are 6'9" and above,
right?
That all are like hybrids of their particular role,
right? They need a guard though with that 3. I mean, like a point guard.
Yes,
just a good, solid, smart point guard. But that'd be a fun team to watch, man.
Right.
Let's talk about this LSU ranking. I shouldn't have said LeBron, but we got time. Yeah,
we got time.
Let's do NBA first, and then
we'll do and then
LSU.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we'll close with IHOP. So according to 24/7 Sports, the number 1 recruit in the country is a kid named Kayvon Thibodeau from from Thousand Oaks, California. That's a Louisiana name if I've ever read one.
Yeah.
Kayvon Thibodeau. I wonder if he's like a Katrina diaspora.
Might be.
You know, a lot of kids ended up out in California.
Yeah.
I mean, that's as Louisiana as it gets. 6'5", 235-pound, weak side defensive end. Usually those kids, though, LSU identifies and goes after them.
Yeah.
Welcome back. Jeff Duncan, Clyde Verdun, and Dave DeCorbier on Duncan Holder. We've got about a half hour left, and we're going to break it down into 3 segments, basically. 2 segments on the air, but 3 topics, I should say. We're going to talk a little.
We're getting you ready for the podcast early.
Yes, good points. Which Clyde will be heavily involved with, by the way. I know I've had some people ask me if Clyde's going to be coming on to the new podcast.
Really?
Yes, yes. You're a big part of it.
Oh
man.
boy,
You're not going anywhere.
We're gonna give the people what they want, I guess.
You're not going anywhere. We're excited about it. We'll have some format announcements to make in the future about that, because we've been brainstorming different ideas for the pod, and it's not really going to be much different than what we've already been doing. But we want to have some vehicles, I guess you would say, some segments that you can count on every week once we get into football season. So look for those announcements down the road. I'm sure Clyde will have it all over social media, like he always does.
Yes.
Making it rain with social media,
Indeed.
cards,
Indeed.
among other things. All right, LeBron James, if you had to guess right now where he would end up, where do you think he's going to? I don't think he's going to end up in Houston. I don't know why that's become like the hot topic. But that would have to involve a sign and trade, right?
Because their roster is already heavily involved and heavily invested right now with contracts in the double-digit $1 million of range. I mean, whether you're talking about Eric Gordon, where you're talking about Brian Anderson, Chris Paul, and obviously James Harden. Literally at this point, and it's interesting because it's such a deep rabbit hole because, and I mean I'm gonna blame Kevin Durant for this, although I mean I don't feel as bad blaming Kevin Durant for this because I mean he brings this on himself. When you have a guy like Trevor Ariza who has been a staple in this league, saying that he would take less money to literally sign with the Warriors for pennies, that's huge in my opinion because he is such a great player. He has been a really good player, a really good swing player in this league, and has the respect of so many. I understand where he's coming from because, of course, everybody wants to feel that. Chris Paul definitely wants to feel that. And as an unrestricted free agent, he's going to have a decision to make too because he's going to have a decision whether or not, how does he stay in Houston? Does he want to stay in Houston? Does he want to go somewhere else? Does he want to play somewhere else? Because he allegedly has told people that he wants the max he can get contract-wise. He wants to get paid, which – unfortunately, those two things don't always jive.
Right.
You can't say you want to get paid and then you want to win a championship. Because, I mean, Houston may want to do that, but if Houston does that, then you really kind of can't get into the LeBron talk because there's so many other things that you would have to do at that point. And we saw what happened with Cleveland, what happened when they dished off every single piece they had before the season started at the All-Star break to help him, to leave him with a roster of literally 7 players that they played during the finals and the playoffs. So for me, I think there's only 2 routes here. And the first route is staying in Cleveland. I think staying in Cleveland is the highest for me in terms of where I think what I think happens. Because
so who do they add to it? Like Paul George?
They might be able to because, I mean, look what they've done. I mean,
Chris Paul and he.
I'm about to say he and Chris Paul. I mean, what stinks is that it didn't work out with Dwayne Wade, although I really do think that they hit the panic button on that too early. Getting rid of, shipping out Dwayne Wade, shipping out Derrick Rose, getting rid of Jay Crowder. Like, all these guys are guys that could have been so helpful for them to at least counter at least some of the things they were doing. Because, I mean, don't get me wrong, Kevin Love did a great job, and Kevin Love, he gets the short shaft all the time. For his play from what he was like in Minnesota to what he's been in Cleveland. But, I mean, Dwayne Wade or Derrick Rose could have been much better than J.R. Smith, man. Jay Crowder could have been just as good, if not better, than Tristan Thompson. I mean, we're talking about guys who, we're talking about guys who would have been at least productive as opposed to George Hill and the rest of that roster.
But if you're LeBron...
But you have options because the only two, the biggest thing is, number one, it goes beyond that. I mean, a lot of people now have been talking about his family, about how his kids are getting older. There was, I think, an erroneous report that was put out by Peyton. His oldest son, it was quote unquote committed to play for a school for some prep school in California, which obviously gets everybody's antennas up because he's going to the Lakers or he's going to LA.
Yeah, that's silly. Guys do that all the time.
They do that all the time.
Guys, high school kids become mercenaries at certain ages because they want to go and try and prep to be an NBA player.
But I mean, at this point, I mean, why when there's so much on the line in terms of what he wants to do and what he wants to be a part of in his kid's life? Because it is true, his kids are much older. They are at this age where he wants to be involved with them. And at this point, he's got a lot of charitable functions and foundations in Cleveland. He's doing a lot of work on the ground in social activism in Cleveland. And he's got his kids. And, I mean, for the most part, he's comfortable. I know he's got houses in both Cleveland and in Brentwood, famous, infamous Brentwood, California. But that doesn't necessarily mean anything. He's rich beyond his wildest dreams. He can have houses in every state if he wanted to. But I think Cleveland, because outside of the contracts for LeBron and what he can get, which he can get the most from Cleveland, don't let anybody tell you differently, the most money he can get this year going forward, Cleveland can do it, and Cleveland is the first team that starts the negotiation process. Between him and Kevin Love, who are making the most, and Tristan Thompson, that contract, I believe they can ship that contract real easily. That contract than everybody else down there, I think it's a lot easier to try to build a winning roster in Cleveland than people are giving it credit for. And then obviously number 2 would be the Lakers. I mean, those are the only two that make sense. However, it's going to be so crazy. I can't wait to see what happens with it, because whatever happens is literally going to change. It's going to be like a tectonic shift in the NBA towards whatever city he goes to.
I got to look up tectonic, Dave. That's a big word. I'm not sure.
Basically, the shifting plates of the earth and
it's a good word.
Yeah.
It's a good word. I think you're right. Brian Windhorst the other day had a great point, and he's covered LeBron since his high school days. He knows him as well as anybody. He said there's really not a great fit for him out there. You can find fault with almost every option for LeBron, and I agree with that. So I think there's much more of a possibility, like you, that he ends up back in Cleveland and they try to rebuild and make another run, because I don't think he sees anything in the West that's going to upend Golden State. And I think that's a big factor in this. The guy wants to win another ring. He's got a shot if he gets to the finals.
I still think wherever he goes, I think he can win multiple championships. I don't care where he goes. I think he still has enough in the tank to win at least 2 more titles. I think he gets to Kobe status and wins at least 2 more rings wherever he goes.
Oh, I definitely don't think that's true. But
what? Why not?
I definitely don't think he's going to win 2 more rings.
Seriously,
No.
You seriously don't think that he has the ability to win 2 rings at least?
I don't see that happening at all.
Jeff, why? Why?
We'll talk about it on the other side of the break. I'll tell you exactly why. But
before
I go, I want to read this LeBron joke that just got sent to me.
Oh, Lord.
Question: why did LeBron James go to college?
Probably something about a 4th semester. Because he only finished 3 quarters?
He struggles with finals. Digest that one, Clyde. We'll talk about it on the other side of this break. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. We're Dunc and Holder.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Somebody texted that to me. It's not even a good joke. It's bad.
That's so bad.
It's not even funny. Man.
Yeah, just saw that. Yeah.
What? I didn't see.
Found dead in his home.
Whoa. Welcome back. Jeff Duncan, Clyde Verdun, Dave DeCorbier, Duncan Holder. Got about another 20 minutes or so. We'll talk a little NBA, but I also want to switch gears real quick before I get into my LeBron James comment. switch gears and go to LSU football after this. But first of all, LeBron. Here's my point on LeBron, real quick. The guy's won 3 NBA titles in 15 seasons. And now he's getting ready to turn
9 finals.
He's getting ready to turn 34, and you think he's going to win 2 more?
Yeah, I absolutely. I don't
know.
No doubts saying that.
Why?
For me, I believe the one thing that I believe that is the most annoying and struggling about people who slander LeBron in the way that they do.
It's not slandering.
Slander. I'll just put both of them out there because I feel like it's slander.
Because you criticize a player.
No,
or
it's
actually
not. It's not.
Say he's not going to win 2 titles. That's not slander.
Well, it's close enough. But I mean, some people are saying worse things. I think number one, LeBron is a physical specimen in the NBA, the likes of which I don't think we've ever seen. The way that he maintains and keeps his body fit at a level that I don't think other players, or now I think other players are starting to realize, is a marvel. And even at his age, for as long as he's gone in the NBA, now granted, again, this is just like we talked about with Drew Brees too. It goes back to the idea that he's got to stay healthy, but I think the biggest thing for him going forward is that now I think he has to start tailoring his game differently to he has to be a player that has to take breaks. He has got to get rest. He can't be a player that is playing 48 minutes a night, every night, 3 times a week, every time in a month, every game in a month, for the next 4 or 5 years. I just don't think it's possible. I don't think he can keep up that level of production in terms of his minutes. However, I still think that the impact that he has affecting a game is still going to be powerful and great enough. And again, it goes back to the idea, if you put the right pieces around him, if he has guys who can shoot, if he has guys who can play the game, and actually has the talent around him, there is nothing stopping him from being... I mean, look at what he did with this Cavs team. Look at what he did with this Cavs team in the second half. They were the 4 seed. They had no business going as far as they did. And he was able to do that with this team this year.
They were the 4th seed because Boston lost their entire team. I mean, if Boston has their entire team, they're not in the finals.
You mean
they would not have beaten Boston.
They have 2 players? You mean if they have Kyrie and Gordon Hayward?
They had Kyrie, they wouldn't have beaten them. No way.
I don't know about
barely
that.
won.
I don't know about
as
that,
it is without Kyrie.
Look, man, and the thing about Kyrie is specifically is that Kyrie. Look, man, they're just talking about like if he goes to if Boston does this, if Boston tries to pull off this move, Kyrie might not have a job in Boston either. And shoot, there's still a lot of conversation about Kyrie as a player too, which I think is fair. Gordon Hayward, I'm not saying
you're not libelous and slander when you talk about Kyrie, but you can't talk about LeBron.
When I say that there's still question marks out there about Kyrie's game and how Kyrie works with teams.
Question marks about LeBron James, a lot of them. I think there's question marks when players go to play for him. They all of a sudden play with him. I should say they play worse, and I think there's something to that.
Did
George Hill played worse?
George Hill is not that same type of player.
George Hill's a good player.
He's a good player. He's
Rodney
not a great
Hood
player.
Couldn't even get on the court anymore. Kevin Love has not played as well with him. There's a lot of players that end up showing up there, and then when they leave, they play better somewhere else.
But that's like
because he dominates the ball, and everything revolves around him.
So is Eric Gordon a worse player by playing with James Harden? Is Chris Paul a worse player?
No,
PJ Tucker.
Some of these guys play better with those guys.
But at the same time, you can't. But it's unfair to say that just because LeBron has the ball in his hands as much, is the same thing would be for any other type of dribble heavy guard or scorer or volume shooter that does the same thing.
But it's different with LeBron. Brian Windhorst talked about this. He talked about going to the 76ers and why he thinks that's not going to happen. He said, because Joel Embiid's not going to want to sit over in the corner and wait on LeBron to do his thing and shoot jumpers. And that's what Kevin Love has sacrificed his game completely to do. And it's more nuanced than just looking at the box score and going, the guy got 30-something points, 12 rebounds, and 11 assists, and he's a great player. Basketball is a team sport. Everybody has to contribute and feel like they are contributing to the cause. And with LeBron, it's all about LeBron, and everybody knows it.
Was it all about LeBron in Miami?
The point is, he hasn't won a title. He's won 1 title in the last how many years?
In the last, this was the 4th year in a row that we had Golden State.
Right. Well, he's in the terrible East.
So he's won 1 in the last 4. and that one was against, again, one of the greatest teams in NBA history that won 73 games. So I don't understand.
And they got swept. They weren't even competitive.
But because the team wasn't competitive. The team
the
2 years ago was much better.
The point is, you got to make players around you better.
But how? But if you look at the roster, talent for
Every
talent,
year I hear this,
there's
Clyde.
no way.
They traded
there's
away.
no way that this
They
team is
traded
the
away
same team as
Crowder.
2 years ago.
They traded away Crowder. All
Look,
those guys.
I agree. I think they blew up the team
Because
too
he
early.
didn't want those guys.
But look at what happened, though. Look at what happened. First of all, they didn't sign Griffin as their GM to a new deal, so they lost a GM. Number one, all right. And even if LeBron has the ability to be able to make calls, personnel changes,
he does.
whether or not he does or doesn't, the fact of the matter is, if Kyrie doesn't want to play with him, that's on Kyrie. This whole notion of not wanting to play with one of the greatest players in NBA history because of some inflated ego of he's not making me better or I want to be out on my own, when there are question marks about whether or not you can be on your own, because shoot, LeBron won that title without Kevin Love and without Kyrie. He did it without those two. He was able to win, and he was able to put, like, even with that team, specifically this year, the Warriors and what the Warriors have done. And this is my thing too. Kevin Durant went from a team that lost to LeBron in the finals, and then lost in 7 games to the team that eventually lost to LeBron in the finals, and then decided that he couldn't win by himself, so he went to go join a 73-win team just to beat LeBron. And if you're telling me that that's not enough to realize that he's the best player in the game, that one of the top 2 players in the NBA had to go and join with the best team in the NBA and be the third option to beat that one guy and that one team?
It's not about one guy, and it's not been about one guy all along. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Who we got? George in Metairie. What's going on today, George? Thanks, George. Thanks, George. Thanks, George. You make some good points, and we can talk about this. Let's take a final break, and we'll continue this conversation on the other side of our break, because I think there's some legitimate points on both sides of this debate. But I tend to agree with George on that one. But I'm sure I'm in the minority out here. More people agree, certainly, with Clyde and his point about LeBron James. I mean, he is multiple NBA champion and MVP for a reason. So I'm not trying to say he's not a great player, but I'm just saying he's not Teflon either. All right, let's continue the debate on the other side of this break. Duncan Holder, Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Stay with us. Hey, that's good, man. We got somebody so frustrated.
Yeah, we got somebody fired up, bruh. Yeah.
That doesn't happen very often. That's good. Oh, I wanted to get to LSU. Let's get to LSU.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because, oh, my little board is down again. I need my mouse jiggled.
Mouse jiggled.
I'm going to tell that to, well, I can't say anything. Thank you, bud.
Gross.
Do I have a cigarette? Auto zone.
See there.
New Orleans and Company.
New Orleans and Company.
That's worse than that. International House of Burgers. Really? Yeah.
Good company, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
what
what
I
I thought
think
too.
of.
I was like, come on, man. At the mouth.
$40,000 retweets on there. They did get a lot of attention, I'll say that.
What?
International House of Burgers.
Yeah, which is at the end of the day what they want.
Right.
Even more than that is people talking about them.
Welcome back, Duncan Holder. One final segment before we sign off for today. And I head out to Metri to see the Saints, the 2018 New Orleans Saints, starting minicamp workouts. They're on the field as we speak. I'm looking forward to seeing the Saints for the first time this offseason. They've always been practicing during the show, so I haven't had a chance to get out there. But I want to talk real quick because I've been teasing it throughout the show about this ESPN power ranking, college football power ranking for upcoming season. And look, no surprise, the Alabama Crimson Tide, defending national champions, #1. I mean, that's a no-brainer. It's a very familiar top 5, Clyde. I mean, it's the same old story. Clemson, #2.
Clemson.
Ohio State, #3. Georgia, #4. Oklahoma, #5. I mean, these are the same 5 schools, I think, that were at the top last year in the college football playoff rankings. And then you get into Penn State, Washington. But what stood out to me, first of all, the LSU Tigers, #18 on the list, which isn't bad considering this is looking like a transition year.
After where they finished last year?
Lost a lot of their offensive firepower. They're rebuilding on the offensive side of the ball. Defense should be good, should be actually better, I think, than they were a year ago. They lost. Here's what they're losing, though. We all know this, but it's just kind of, I think, important to educate everybody on what they're trying to replace. They lost their top 2 running backs, top 2 wide receivers, 3/5 of their starting offensive line. So, and the quarterback. So they're rebuilding on the offensive side of the ball. How well Steve Ensminger and the offensive staff can put together a productive unit, I think, is going to be the key to the season. But here's what concerns me as someone that's going to be following LSU pretty heavily next season. Of the top 20 teams in this ranking, LSU will play 4 of the top 9. They play Alabama, who's #1, Georgia, #4. Let's see here. I'm sorry, I may have been erroneous there. I know it's crazy for me to say that. Auburn, #11, so not the top 9, and then Miami, #13. So 4 of the top 13 in the country, and then Florida checks in at #19. So they play 5 of the top 20 teams,
That's
and they
surprise.
play Florida on the road.
Yeah.
So, if they're going to be underdogs, probably in at least 4 of those games, maybe all 5 of them.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. We talked about this, or at least we briefly talked about this when you brought it up earlier in the show, and that's where my feeling on it is that I think specifically this season for LSU can go one of a handful of ways, and really it starts with the first 5 games of the season. You open the year in Arlington against Miami, then you're back at home against Southeastern, then you're on the road at Auburn, and then you have home games against Louisiana Tech and Ole Miss. Theoretically, in my mind, you want to be, I think a positive would be 4-1.
Agreed. You got to win one of the 2 toughest.
Yeah, you got to win one of the 2 tough ones.
Miami, and neutral field, or at Auburn.
And you can't. And then another thing, you can't lose to Ole Miss at home. You can't lose to an Ole Miss team that is going through sanctions and is under Matt Luke as a head coach now. That has almost nothing to play for this year, with no Shea Patterson because he's gone. Many other players who have left the program. At best, you want to go 4-1. At worst, I think 3-2 is still very respectable. Auburn obviously is going to be returning
Jarrett
Stidham, who obviously led them to the West title, and Alabama eventually still ended up winning the national championship, which is insane to me. But that Miami game is going to be it's going to be a good game. But Miami's had a lot coming back. But then once you get past that, literally it is a minefield on a balance beam. Florida on the road, Georgia at home, Mississippi State at home, Alabama at home, Arkansas on the road, and then you close with Rice at home, and then on the road at Texas A&M the week of Thanksgiving. Regardless of how you think the season's going to go, that last half of the schedule is going to be brutal and excruciating. And for me, I think this is where we talk about the idea of LSU being able to weather what's going to be a challenging year, regardless of what fans think. It's going to be a challenging year. The schedule is absolutely the toughest in the nation, if not one of the toughest. And that will show at the end of the year when we look at strength of schedule, RPI, things like that. But going into next year, though, I really think going into 2019, this LSU squad has a very strong chance of being a very diverse and strong group at a lot of different points. Much specifically, I think on offense, if you get Joe Burrow or whoever eventually wins the quarterback battle this year, I think that guy will have the opportunity to go into 2019 as one of the top players in the SEC, probably maybe one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC. But I think you replenish your wide receiver group, you replenish your running back group. But then specifically, I think on defense, I think Dave Aranda is putting together one of the strongest defenses in the SEC going into 2019. That if you can weather this year, if you can weather 2018,
that's the key question.
If you can
you
weather
the year,
and that's where I think for me the concern is, well, if you can't weather it this year, if things go awry, if things go sideways, I don't know who will be making the call for the next head coach at that point.
Right.
But whoever's going to make that call is going to have an absolutely stacked roster for 2019.
Will the LSU faithful, will the fan base be patient?
I mean, I know the answer to this. I'm just trying to
and give Ed
the answer is no.
Another chance.
Of course not.
Look, I didn't even mention this, Clyde. Texas A&M is number 21 on this list, and LSU has to play in College Station.
And that's a tough place to play, man.
They played well historically there, but that's still a tough assignment.
Yeah.
Going in there. So they very, very
You got
easily,
Jimbo there. You got Jimbo there now.
Right.
You have a new head coach in Arkansas. You're going to have Dan Mullen in Florida now, and he's got a stacked roster.
I'm just saying
Georgia
they very easily could be underdogs in 6 games this year because 2 of their big home games are the 2 best teams they play,
Yes.
Alabama and Georgia.
Yeah.
So even though they get them in Tiger
within
Stadium,
weeks of each other, within like 4 weeks,
they're playing. The best teams are playing at home. So the teams that they're kind of, you would say maybe a coin toss, like the A&M game, the Florida game, they're on the road, so it makes it doubly tough. Miami's on a neutral field. I think 5 losses is very possible this year.
5? I mean, I thought you were going to go with 6 because, I mean, at this
Well,
point...
6 is possible. I think
It's
5
really possible.
is almost likely unless they are able to pull it. And if Ed Ogeron's able to go 8-4 with this team,
Yeah.
Coach of the year.
Yeah, Coach of the Year. Give him a contract extension because that 2019 team, I think, that'll be a top 10 team in the preseason for sure, and they'll have a lot more expectations. But at this point, you're talking about having to win games that you're not supposed to win, or win the games that you're not scheduled to win, and then hopefully staving off any major upsets against the cupcakes, quote unquote.
all right, we are done. 2 hours in the books went by like the blink of an eye. When I go on a rant on getting booted and traffic camera tickets, things go by quickly. I want to thank Will Guillory and Larry Holder for their appearances. And if you missed the live version, you can always catch it on the iHeartRadio podcast. We'll be back again tomorrow. Clyde, Dave, and I. Larry Holder will be out at Saints minicamp. You're listening to Dunc and Holder, Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Everybody have a great Tuesday. We'll talk to you tomorrow. That sounds good, man. That's a good cover. That actually might be the best cover. Oh yeah, that the Bad Wolves or something like that. Yeah, that thing's strong. Why can't you play the Gourds, by the way? What's the deal?
Because there's so much cursing, dude.